So what are we here for? We are basically here for two things. One is an open mindset towards technical testing, and second is an approach to debug mobile web or mobile native or mobile hybrid apps. So mobile testers in the world are evolving. Are you evolving too? Why should you evolve? So currently there has been a lot of news going on in, around the world about companies adopting artificial intelligence. Automation is increasing, may it be software testing or may it be in any other domain. So a lot of controversial statements have also been made and they are probably kind of raising questions in terms of how secure QA jobs are going to be in the future. So as you see, 65% of IT employees are not trainable in new technologies. Capgemini CEO has said that. So do you think that we should actually be evolving now? I kind of agree with this tweet which I had come across recently, which is the groundwork of any testing future is getting really good at it and keeping up with the new testing skills and techniques. Moreover, if you see now, there has been a rising demand for technical testers or dev QAs, if you want to call it something else. So what is a technical tester? Technical tester is basically someone who knows how to test, as well as someone who knows a lot about the technology of the application that he's testing. So I have just kind of tried to picturize this, wherein this is a technical tester who knows a lot of technology like HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Java. He knows a lot about services also. He knows a lot about infrastructure as well, which is basically like DevOps. He knows a lot about databases as well, plus he knows a lot about devices. So what are the current testing trends? So based upon the recent Source Labs testing trends that had come up, 29% of testers use real devices to test websites or native apps. 46% confirmed of more issues with mobile environments than desktop. 92% testing teams perform mobile cross-browser testing. One very key important point to note over here is mobile testing will still remain on top. Since Agile demands high collaboration, this is very important for us, as in wherein developers and testers are going to collaborate more closely together, because each and every project is going to adopt Agile going ahead. And the last one, and the last trend is basically that debugging skills are going to be in demand. So let me start with Sherlock, who is basically a mobile tester. So Sherlock is a really efficient tester, really efficient mobile tester. He is good at testing, but then there are certain drawbacks that he currently faces. So what are those drawbacks? So you can see one is basically he's a very conventional black box tester. He has poor coverage of tests. He's stuck with producing orthodox defect artifacts, and he ends up with a lot of technical testing debt. So talking about poor coverage of tests. So when it comes to poor coverage of tests, Sherlock basically comes across blockers where he's supposed to test a specific scenario, but he's not able to because he does not know certain techniques and tools. So thereby he actually lacks the complete coverage that he needs to give for the tests. Stuck with producing orthodox defect artifacts. That is basically whenever an issue is found, the Sherlock does not provide complete information for the bug, because he's not able to get the complete information in the first place from the mobile apps or mobile websites that he's testing. And third one is, last one is ends up with technical testing debt. So this is basically what you call a concept where you are not using technical testing techniques for your routine testing approaches, and this slowly grows up to a situation wherein your developers are getting annoyed because you are not communicating with them in a fashion or in a protocol which is very developer friendly to say. So this is just a way that I'm trying to imply that is this really enough for you to raise bugs? So yeah, a badly reported bug is much worse than a badly drawn one. So how do we actually resolve this problem? How do we upgrade Sherlock over here and make him a better mobile tester? So before we move on to finding the solutions for that, let us look at what kind of applications are there on the mobile. So on a broad basis, we can see that applications on mobile can be divided into three categories. One is web, the other one is hybrid, and the last one is native. So web is pretty self-explanatory, as in you access mobile websites on the vendors, as in vendor browsers like Chrome, Firefox, and Safari. Hybrid applications are basically the applications which have a native base, but there are certain web components or web interfaces built into them, embedded into them. The third one is native. Native applications are basically applications which are completely native in nature, and they are built using the vendors SDK components only. They have no web counterparts at all. So if we want to upgrade Sherlock and make him test these kind of applications properly, what do we do? So we can use these tools. So browser developer tools, network proxy tools, and device log monitoring tools. So let us start with browser developer tools first. So browser developer tools are basically the developer tools which come along with your browsers. So Chrome, Safari, and Firefox, all three of them come with their own developer tools which you can use for debugging your mobile web applications on your mobile. So what kind of information is exposed by browser developer tools? Complete DOM structure of the web page, CSS styles applied to the DOM, request and response information to find network issues, page resources, which is basically HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and images, runtime performance of different events that take place on loading web page, memory profiling to find memory leak problems, JavaScript error and warnings, non-binary data sent over WebSockets. So this is one other type of web applications wherein if you want to establish real-time communication between your client and the server or the client and the client, you use WebSockets instead of HTTP communication. So even this kind of communication can be actually debugged using browser developer tools. Cached content, so any content which is basically cached by your websites can also be debugged using these tools. Cookie information and data stored in local storage, session storage, indexed DB, and WebSQL. And what are the additional testability features provided by these browser developer tools? One is you can live edit HTML elements, add, update, delete elements and their attributes, CSS values. Next one is you can switch context to debug iframes embedded inside pages. So whenever there are iframes inside pages, then you can debug them as well using browser developer tools. Edit and resend requests from network panel. So Firefox browser has this really nice feature wherein you can edit a specific request and resend it, which is unfortunately not available in Chrome. Enable and disable cache. So you can perform these kind of scenarios as well, wherein you can enable or disable a cache and check up a particular scenario where the behavior of the application relies on the cache content. So this is one thing which you can definitely try doing when you are testing a specific scenario. Edit or delete cookies. Edit or delete local and session storage data. And manipulate JavaScript data as well. Sorry?
Is it related to mobile apps?
So what I'm going to cover is basically mobile web applications, mobile native applications, and mobile hybrid applications.
Okay.
Yeah. So what is the normal strategy that is being followed by teams when they want to debug mobile web apps on their devices? So what they normally do is they open desktop browser and start developer tools. They install either they install the user agent spoofer on browser, or they simulate the mobile mode on the desktop browsers and start testing their mobile websites. So I have displayed a generic strategy that is being followed by teams to test mobile web applications. What can be done instead of that? So instead of this, what we can do is we can actually perform debugging on real devices, but test the application on desktop browsers. So in order to do this, what you need to do is you need to enable device debugging, enable USB debugging on your devices, connect your device to your laptop, and then once you connect your device to your laptop, you should be able to inspect and perform all your testing and debugging on your desktop browser tools.
Sorry, I didn't get this. How can I do that third option? Display device after enabling the debug?
Yeah, so basically what you need to do is, as in, I'm anyway going to showcase it later in the demo. So there is a way for you to go to the developer tools of your browser and then.
I understood in the mobile section, but how we can do on the browser itself?
Okay, so I'll show it to you during the demo. So I have compiled kind of a comparative table over here, wherein for each browser, what are the requirements for setup, and what are the additional features that are provided for mobile web debugging. So when it comes to Google Chrome, on Google Chrome, if you want to debug Google Chrome installed on a device, you can connect to Chrome on any desktop OS. You need to have Android or iOS phone with Chrome installed, and you need a USB cable. Similarly, it's the same for Mozilla Firefox and for Safari as well. So there is a really good feature which Google Chrome provides, which is basically screencasting your website from device to DevTools. So once you connect your device to developer tools on your desktop, you can screencast whatever is happening on your mobile Chrome browser and see it on your developer tools view also. Debugging over Wi-Fi is possible for both Google Chrome and Firefox. It's easier to set up debugging over Wi-Fi for Firefox. It's a bit complicated for Google Chrome. Mozilla Firefox comes with this add-on called as Valence. So Valence is basically a tool which helps you perform cross-browser debugging. So let's say you want to debug, you want one single tool wherein you will be able to inspect web applications viewed from either Firefox or Chrome or Safari. So Valence is that add-on which you can use for debugging cross-browser websites. So what you will actually do is you will open up a website on Firefox, let's say, on your Android phone. You will connect, or Chrome or Safari, in that case. You will connect your phone to your laptop using USB cable or Wi-Fi, and you will debug this website on Firefox using Valence. So this functionality is not provided by any other browser vendor. One more thing that I would also like to mention is you can debug web views. So as I had mentioned before, hybrid apps, right? So hybrid apps are nothing but web views embedded inside native applications. So you can also debug these web views inside native applications with the help of browser developer tools. So yeah, this is what I was talking about, Valence. So it's an add-on. So all the latest Firefox browsers that you use, they come with Web IDE. So when you open up Web IDE for the first time, this Valence add-on is installed automatically, and this is basically how the user interface looks like. So is debugging web views on hybrid apps straightforward? No. So how would you actually go about doing that? So I would recommend, if you want to debug web views on Android applications, on Android web apps, in that case you need to first ask your developers to include this setting, which is basically inside your native application. So this piece of code should always be there in your debug builds. So please make sure that your developers include this code in your apps. In case of iOS, if you want to debug web views on iOS native applications or hybrid applications to be precise, you need to have development provisioning profile installed on your target device. And you can debug only if you build and run the app from export. Like for example, if you download the application from from your Apple Store, you cannot do that. You cannot debug your web views. You need to have a debug build, as in a build which you probably get from your developers. But in case of iOS, it's mandatory that you have Xcode, the development IDE, installed on your Macintosh, Mac OS X, and you run your application code from Xcode, and then you'll be able to debug.
Generally, developer doesn't give the debugger.
Sorry.
For the testing purpose, generally developer doesn't give that debugger APK file.
That's right. So which is why I said this is like a shortcoming wherein for iOS you need to have Xcode installed on your macOS, and you need to have the source code also, so that you can actually build the application and run it on your device from Xcode if you want to debug web views. What are the other options over here? So there are two options. One is WEI Winer and Ghost Lab. So both of these options, Ghost Lab is basically a licensed tool to test and inspect any website on various browsers and mobile devices simultaneously. It's a pretty nice tool, but it's paid, but I will definitely mention looking at this tool. Let's move on to network proxy tools. So when it comes to network proxy tools, these are nothing but basically proxies that are between your applications and the network. So whenever you make use of network proxy applications, you will be able to monitor all the traffic that is going through your mobile applications, or any network traffic coming from your device to the internet. So what are the benefits of this? So benefits of this are you are basically able to monitor all the network requests and responses in this tool. You can see the communication protocol that is being used for the requests. What is the request endpoint? What are the request headers? What is the request payload that is sent to the API? What are the response headers? And what is the response body? So this is basically how communication happens over a network proxy tool. So what you do is you connect your mobile to a network proxy. So whenever you go to your Wi-Fi settings, you need to enable proxy for your Wi-Fi, and then your proxy should basically be installed on your desktop. And both your desktop, as in either the laptop or the desktop, and your device should come under the same common network, so that they will be able to. So your device will be able to connect to the proxy which is installed on your desktop. So this tool will basically provide you an interface which will give you a live feed of all the network requests that are going from your device to the internet. So let's say you are testing an application, and that application makes network calls to the internet. So the core functionality of the application relies on making network calls. Like for example, let's say WhatsApp or any other application, Facebook. So if you want to actually have an inside look of what is going on inside, you can install a network proxy tool on your machine and check all the requests and responses that are going through. So
Is this data going to be encrypted, or
most of the applications which are now being built make it encrypted, as in they use SSL. So a way of actually using this tool from a tester's perspective would be, one of the scenarios would be that to make sure that every network call that is being made from your application is encrypted, or let's say it's a HTTPS call. So the tools that I'm talking about, they also provide a way for you to decrypt encrypted network calls also.
Does it affect some performance?
Sorry?
Using the proxy, does it affect the performance of the application?
No, I don't know. It does not affect the performance, but then if you want to actually test that kind of a scenario, it does provide you a functionality to throttle the network speeds so that you can actually test a low performance scenario or a low network scenario. So that is one feature that is provided by such tools. So you can throttle the network speed, as in it will simulate it in a way such that when you connect to the network, it will provide you bad latency, and thus you can actually test your app's behavior in such conditions. What are the additional testability features provided by these tools? One is dynamic rewrite request or response. So proxy tools basically provide this feature wherein you can edit certain parameters of a request or a response in runtime. So let's say you have a scenario wherein you are performing login, the very generic scenario. You're performing login of an application and you want to check how the application behaves if a successful response does not come back, and you don't have a way to reproduce that scenario now because the application is built and you don't have you have the API which is running on production. So what you could do is you could modify the request which is actually being sent when you hit login, modify it and tell the network proxy tool that okay, whenever this request goes to the internet, return me a response which will contain, let's say, 500 status code instead of 200. So in this case, you will actually be able to reproduce a kind of a scenario which will not be normally able to do so. So this is something which can definitely make use of to reproduce the kind of scenarios that you want to. Blacklist request or response. So blacklist request or response is basically where you want to block a certain domain. So if you want to test some scenario wherein you are blocking a certain domain, or let's say your application, web application or a native application is trying to fetch some resources from a domain. In that case, what you can do is you can blacklist that domain and test that negative scenario, how the application behaves. Yeah.
What about the dynamic rewriting of blacklisting? Is it with respect to your internet calls, that is HTTP calls, or can we do it for any local UAT calls?
Sorry?
Can we do it for native calls? The rewriting of our request response.
This is purely for internet network calls,
So
HTTP.
HTTP.
Yes.
You must be using some global proxy that kind of.
Yeah, so I'm coming to the tools actually in the next slide. Simulating network speeds. So yeah, as I mentioned before, you can simulate network speeds using network proxy tools. Mock request or response. So this is something pretty similar to dynamic rewrite request or response, wherein what you want to do is, let's say there is you are working on a feature of an application where the API is not ready yet. So developers have not created the API for it yet, but you want to test it. So in that case, you can make use of this feature of the proxy tools, wherein your application sends an API call, but then there is no API deployed or created for it. So what you will do is you can create a condition in the proxy tool such that it will return back a mock response to you to test it. Yeah. So dynamic rewrite request or response is basically like you perform updates to your request or a response in runtime. So you are sending a request from your application. Let's say you are trying to perform a login. Okay. Considering a very crude example where your login parameters are being sent in the URL itself, or normally which we don't do, but I'm just considering a crude example, wherein your login parameters are being passed in the URL itself. So what you would do is you would actually consider modifying these parameters, okay, in the runtime by the network proxy tool itself, such that it produces some different scenario or a different expectation. So this is the use of modify dynamic rewrite request or response.
And how do we simulate network speed?
So network speed is basically possible, as in there is a setting in these proxy tools wherein you can actually simulate the network speed, as in it's a interface option wherein you can actually do that. So first tool is basically Charles. Charles is a cross-platform network proxy tool which you can install on either Windows or Mac OS or Linux. It's a Java-based tool, but it's a paid tool. You can make use of it for as a trial version for some time, like I think it's around 13 days, but it's a really nice tool. The other option, free option, which I really prefer is Fiddler. The only problem with Fiddler is that it's made for Windows. There have been discussions about Fiddler being available on macOS and Linux as well, but I haven't tried that till now. Other options. So there is also this tool called as Burp, which is fundamentally a security vulnerability scanner, but it can also be used as a network proxy tool, as in it also allows you to monitor your network traffic. The last one is device log monitoring tools. So every device, may it be iOS or Android, they have the logging system. So logs of your system, logs of your applications, real-time logs of your applications can be monitored using device log monitoring tools. So let's say you want to, there is a scenario where you came across a crash in your application and you want to raise a bug for it, but then the developer asks you for more information. What you could do is you can actually connect your application to these tools and get more information about the crash. I mean, definitely there has to be some kind of a log that gets created when you perform this kind of a scenario, and this is something which you can fetch the information from and provide it in your bugs or defect. So what kind of information is provided by these tools? Device log messages, which is basically explicit debug messages, which are included in your application code, or warnings or errors.
So this does not mention the events that were performed.
What kind of events?
I mean, if there are X number of steps or X number of events we perform before the application actually crashed. So does this log those events also?
No.
So events have to be taken prior to performing there are certain steps we do before we get a crash.
Yes.
So this will actually give the error message, the warnings, and the other stuff.
Yes.
But does it also give any kind of what were the events that we mentioned, like opening an app or opening a particular tab or an app?
Because this is a purely system device log monitoring tool. It is not really a tool which caters to this kind of a functionality wherein you will actually get the steps. I mean, that's a pretty good idea, but then yeah, the intention of these tools are basically to provide you the logs that are generated by the device on the system itself. So why not make use of those logs and provide this information to the developers?
I think you can get those steps in the app logs,
Yeah,
provided you tell the developer to
Yes.
log those steps.
Yes.
And have that debug mode in like info mode. So, but then the downside of it is like your log will swell up
Yeah.
if there is no crash,
Correct.
Yeah.
right? So it's the balance between do you want all your information or like do you want just the log for the crash?
That's right. So if you want to monitor Android logs, device logs, then you can do that using Android Debug Bridge. So Android Debug Bridge normally comes with Android SDK. Debug Bridge, you would have to probably download the whole Android SDK, but I came across articles and discussions wherein you can actually now download only the platform tools for Android debug builds. So you really don't need to download the whole SDK for just using the Android debug bridge now. In case of iOS, you can view device logs by connecting your iOS device to its code. Alternatively, you can also use Apple Configurator 2 to view iOS device logs. There is another third-party app which is iOS Console. So you can install that application iOS Console on your Mac OS X and connect your device, and it will start showing you the logs.
So to get the logs on an Apple iPhone, so is there a way we can do it by not using a Mac?
By not using a Mac.
You can use tools like iTools.
iTools, yes. You can use iTools on Windows.
Because that is one area that a lot of people face problems.
Yes.
You can also run your Selenium scripts on Windows as well as iOS. There are ways to do it, but many people discuss about it in the internet because everybody would sell a Mac and then ask you to correct for Windows to be with ADB, there are a lot of switches that you can use. A lot of commands are there in ADB. You can filter your logs. You can filter any time information that is getting printed on the console.
Yes.
And that's making it a really perfect.
Locket gives a lot of options.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, once you start adopting these 3 different tools, you can consider yourself upgraded. So what I've shown is basically now Sherlock is basically now a gray box tester. He can cover more tests. He produces better defect artifacts because he's able to provide more information in his bugs. And technical testing depth is no more a problem for him. Which tools can you use when? So if you are testing web applications or websites on your browsers on the devices, use browser developer tools. If you are debugging or if you are testing hybrid applications which have web components in them, then you can use these tools in tandem. Like for example, you can use browser developer tools to debug your web views. You can use network proxy tools to monitor your network calls. And you can also use device log monitoring tools to check for any logs that have been printed or that have been produced by the device. And what about native apps? So in case of native apps, you can make use of network proxy tools and device log monitoring tools together.
One question. We just discussed, network proxy tools, basically doing the proxy for web HTTP content. Again, my question falls on the same thing. As this slide says, native app with the network proxy, is just for the proxying purpose, or is it for the complete, getting the content of whatever I mean to say the request and response contents as well?
See, network calls can be made either from your web applications or it can be made from your native applications also. Native applications are basically something which, as I said, created using the native SDKs of the vendor, right? So they are not standalone applications. So if you see the current set of suite of applications that you install on your phone, almost each and every one makes some kind of the other call to the internet to either fetch data or to put update something. So these are network calls basically. Most of them are HTTP only. So which is why I mentioned that if you are testing native apps and if your native app is connecting to the internet, it makes sense to use native network proxy tool to debug the information.
If I may add anything.
Sure.
You can use JMeter. You can use JMeter as a tool with a proxy installed on your mobile device.
Yes.
And then you can make those calls via your app, and JMeter, through JMeter proxy you will see the posts, requests and response getting transferred between client and server.
How much JMeter, the way we do it for web, similarly we can do it for mobile?
Yes, so
Yes.
what they provide is the certificate. JMeter gives a certificate which needs to be installed, and the traffic needs to be routed through that proxy.
Yeah.
Once it is done,
Even WebSocket also.
Bubsuit, yes, Bubsuit open source is very nice, but sorry, the non-commercial version, but commercial version is really awesome and it's a lot of money.
Wait, I think, I mean, even without JMeter, as he told, you use a proxy.
Yeah.
Local knows you route, it gives you a certificate, you install on your mobile, or I mean the device. So even if it doesn't connect to internet, right? So you can still see all the requests and responses.
Because
Yes.
like if you take just few examples like Fiddler, they give you HTTP, but when you go for charge, it gives you the UDP calls as well, which are making to the HTTP. So that is
So
that was
the proxies act as the name says proxy. So you can route and then you can get everything whatever you want. I mean, the traffic log.
Another tool which I like, probably you may guys be using, Wireshark.
Yes, Wireshark.
Fantastic tool to use. I do not use Charge Proxy. I don't know.
Wireshark is good for TCP/IP also. So Fiddler and Charles, I'm not sure if they provide TCP/IP based communication. Wireshark is something that you can use.
I'm not so sure about Charles, but Fiddler doesn't.
As in, I had read about WhatsApp using actually TCP/IP and not HTTP for communications.
That's something similar to that. Most of the messaging apps which you have, they do a TCP/IP connection, not through the HTTP. That's why the networking calls and doesn't get recorded. That's the question of how do you basically do it.
Yeah. So how can you get started? So first of all, you need to understand the application architecture. Ask your developers questions. There's no harm in asking them. I mean, if you are working in Agile, you are always collaborating with your developers. So ask them what the architecture of the application is, how each component in the application interacts with each other. Understand the technology behind the app. So let's say if you're testing web applications, it's not really mandatory that you should be able to develop a web application or a website, but then it's highly useful if you know HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and Ajax. Similarly, if you are testing a hybrid application or a native application, it's not mandatory that you should be able to develop native applications, but then you should at least know what is the architecture or the layout of the framework behind the application created. Use multiple tools in tandem. One tool is normally not a solution for everything. So as I mentioned before, use if you are based upon the type of application that you are testing, you can use multiple tools together. Raise bugs with all the information gathered from debugging tools. This will save your devs time to fix the bugs. So whenever you are raising bugs, then make sure that you are actually trying to gather as much information as you can from these tools and provide this information to your developers. And lastly, document the debugging approaches you use for others to benefit from. So if you find some kind of a good debugging approach, you should definitely document it so that others can make use of. So this is as far as the whole presentation is concerned. I would also like to, if there is time, I would also like to give a demonstration for a few debugging approaches.
So what's the class slide without a
That is basically just a set of resources. Yeah.
Are you going to provide these slides on your website?
These slides will be provided by ATA.
Yes, so the talk that is being given is being shared with you guys in YouTube. So follow the channel, you will get updated. Slides is difficult to comment.
The cable as well as an Android phone with them, then they can also do it along with me. Okay. So what I'll start with is basically first showing you how we can debug mobile web apps on Chrome and Firefox using their own vendor developer tools as well as using Valence.
Have you used Happy?
Sorry, APPIE. APPIE. No, I've not heard of it.
Actually, it is a combination of multiple tools.
Okay.
Like WebSockets, browser, JDBI, you get it. So it is a combination of. And one more is camera.
So this is the tab which you can see for devices connected to your desktop browser. And you can see, so I have connected my device, which is an Android smartphone, so it's connected now, XT1033. So over here, once you click on XT1033 as in the device that you connect to, you will be able to see this is opened up. So what I'll do is I'll click on inspect, and I'll be able to inspect this application which is right now open on my mobile device. So you can see the complete DOM structure which comes from the device, Wikipedia website. And as I mentioned, this Chrome also has the mirroring functionality. So if you see over here, not sure how easy it will be for all of you to see this, but if you scroll on the view that's shown on the developer tools, it will also scroll the view which is there on your mobile device. So this is basically Chrome to Chrome. Now, what if I want to debug the same on Firefox? I can do that using balance.
Balance is the written.
Yes. So I've opened up Firefox and I will go to developer and web IDE. So this is the interface that you saw in my slide as well. So if you want to see where your connected devices are, look to your right. Under USB devices, you can see that my Android phone is connected and it's got Chrome open on it. So on the left, you can see the tabs that are open up on your browser on the device. So if you click on it, you should be able to inspect your debug and inspect your web application on Firefox as well. This is as far as, okay, so I also cover up Firefox. So it's almost the same for Firefox as well. So what you just need to do is you need to open up Firefox, which is installed on your smartphone, and go to developer options, developer, web IDE, and right now it's showing me Firefox on Android because I've got Firefox open up over here. So I have opened up Wikipedia again on Firefox, and if you click on the tab, you should be able to inspect. So what about web views? So what I've done is I have created a small Android app which basically opens up a web view inside a native container. So if you see, this is basically just a very simple Android application that I've created. It shows a list of options like Agile, test automation, software testing, DevOps. And if you tap on one of these options, it will open up its Wikipedia article. So it's just it's a normal native application which opens a web view inside the container itself. So what if I want to debug this web view inside the native app? So I'll show it to you over here. So I'll open up Chrome again. So you can debug web views on your Android applications on Chrome.
How did you get the second one?
Which one?
The last pane, bottom pane. Console window, sensors.
That just shows up.
When you click on what?
Oh, if you want to open it explicitly, as in if it's not visible to you, then you need to click on options, more tools, and remote devices. So, yeah, what I'll do is So I will now click an option which should open up a web view. So I opened up an option for test automation, and it opened Wikipedia article for test automation. So you can see that it has provided me the inspect functionality for that web view as well. So I can inspect web views using Chrome.
I should actually open it on Chrome so that I can use it. Is it a mandate?
Sorry?
That web view which that is going to happen.
It's open from your native application and not on Chrome. So this is as far as web applications are concerned. So how you can actually connect your web applications which are running on your browsers or in your hybrid applications to your desktop browser tools and debug them. We can also have a look at monitoring tools, like log monitoring tools. So what I'll do is I'll connect my device to the laptop and show you how the logs show up. what you need to do is, in order to use ADB, which is basically the tool for retrieving the logs from, you need to download platform tools from the internet. So over here you can see adb.exe. So this is basically the utility which you run to obtain logs from. So what I'll do is I'll run that application. So as you can see, my device is listed over here. So I used the command adb devices. It showed me the logs. Yeah, I can use
Read
that
for something, then it will not come. So
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can dump these logs
Into a file.
minus D.
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll actually just do -d. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to open up the same app which I was talking about, and there is an option. There is the fourth option, which is DevOps in that list of topics. I have actually created it in such a way that it will crash. So what I'm trying to show over here is how you can actually monitor or how you can actually check the logs. So when I tap on the fourth option, it should crash the application, and what I'll do is I'll also hit ADB logcat over here. So right now, after hitting enter, it is constantly feeding this data into my log.txt file, and I'm tapping on DevOps option to crash the app. So my app has crashed. I'm stopping this. So as you can see, this represents the crash that actually happened for the application. So this is the package name of my app, gtr.ada.com.testwiki, and I actually crashed this application on purpose in the code so that you can actually see the log being generated. So in a real-time scenario, what you could actually do is you can copy this log and send it to your developer as well. The command I used was adb logcat. Yes. We still have around 10 minutes, so I can also show network proxy tool. Yeah. So what I do is I'll open up Fiddler.
This Fiddler comes in a free tool.
Yeah. Fiddler is a free tool, but it's as in it's primarily made for Windows. So as you can see over here, I have opened up Fiddler. So Fiddler's interface is pretty clean and simple. On the left hand side panel, you can see all the requests that go from your device, as in the machine that you have Fiddler installed on. On the right hand side, if you click on any of these requests, you can see its corresponding information on the right hand side. There are also some other tabs over here which you can make use of. Like for example, if you want to use Fiddler as a API testing tool, you can do that as well using Composer. So as far as debugging is concerned, we are more concerned with inspectors. So what I'll do is I'll connect my in order to debug network calls which are being made from your device, right? You need to first connect your device. You need to first connect your device to the network. So what you need to do is you need to go to Tools, Telerik Fiddler Options, Connections, and you need to enable this checkbox, which is allow remote computers to connect. Once you do that, note down the IP address and configure the same IP address in your phone's Wi-Fi configuration. Go to your phone's Wi-Fi options, long tap on the connection, and there will be an option like modify network, which will let you enter the proxy settings.
Typically speaking, Fiddler can be used as a proxy for any kind of Wi-Fi setup, right? If you have 3 machines which are connected to a particular Wi-Fi router, and you want to do the network level proxy analysis debugging, be it mobile devices or laptop.
Yeah.
So we can use this.
Yes.